Greetings and welcome to another model building workshop and happy Victory in Europe Day, 80th anniversary. So I want to celebrate that right off the bat. I don't know if you can see my pin here I got from over in the UK. Had it mailed over. So happy VE Day, as we used to say over here. We celebrate Victory Day here in Rhode Island in August. So we do have that holiday as a state holiday. Anyway, getting on to model building. Today we're going to be looking at the Marder II. This is the vintage and still around Tamiya kit of the German tank destroyer. Are you ready? SD KFZ 131 Marder II. So yeah, tank destroyer. It's the box art. And you gotta love this pose from this vehicle there. Look at that really flamboyant tank commander there, or the tank destroyer commander, I should say, to be technical. Look at the pose on that guy, huh? Now, this is actually based on a real photograph of this particular vehicle here with that fun illustration on the side. So this is based on a real photo. And all I can say is, looking at this photo, if I were that commander, you know, why not pose in a crazy way? Because, hey, you know, make the most of your photo op, right? So, and he's lived on in history because this picture is around, you know, and we're still looking at it and we're still referencing it for this model kit. So that guy, you know, years later, 80 years, still going. So, for those of you who don't know, I am Mr. Allen, and I'm doing this on behalf of the Community Libraries of Providence, okay? So this is the old kit here with some fun pictures on the side of the box with kits. I don't even think they even make these anymore. And Tamiya, no, or they have definitely changed them around a bit. Especially that old box art. Goes back to like the 70s. So I've got a couple of options or variants, versions, whatever. There's two of these. I am building this one here. And back here I've got one my father built. Oh. Back in the 80s. Yeah. So let's have a look at that and honor my dad. Yep. Unfortunately, let's see if I can get this. Our flamboyant commander has taken a spill here. I just noticed that he is napping on the job. Let me see if I can resurrect him from the bowels of this vehicle. Can I get you back to attention, sir? This guy's going to have to read his newspaper outside there. Probably should have worked on this before I started the camera. And it looks like I'm going to have to pause because that guy's really taking a break. Hang on. Okay, looks like this glue is definitely didn't glue it in very tightly there. But here he is. And I'm probably going to have to move him because he's going to fall as soon as I do anything. So that's our commander here. My father had added a infantryman going over some paperwork here. He had him sitting on the back, which actually I think was a pretty good add-on. So my father tried to paint the kill rings on this vehicle as opposed to the decals, you know. Because this particular vehicle was a very successful tank killer and had many kills to its credit, and a really fun insignia and mascot there. So yeah, this one was built, like I said, back in the 80s, and I'm noticing from the dark yellow on this, gives me an idea of the date on this. I don't know if anybody remembers these paints. I still have some of these around, more for nostalgia than for actually working with them, but this is the old Patra paint. Yeah, $1.49. I mean, you know. It's been sitting around for a while, right? But this was what we had growing up. You know, I still have, like I said, still have a couple of them lying around just for the fun of it. You know, these were the paints we had, and the dark yellow was a real mustard color, so it was a lot darker than like the dark yellow, I think it's right here, of Tamiya. Yeah. Which is, you know, a little less mustardy, basically. This was an early airbrush job for us, my dad and I. So we picked up an airbrush around that time, sometime in the mid-'80s. So that's what that's from. And here's the one I'm working on here. And I opted to do a very different type of scheme. And this one is fictitious. This is just a fictitious concept that I'm trying to do with a geometric style pattern. And sourcing some decals from my spares box. I think I got that number off an old Tallery Hetzer kit. Got markings for a Panzer Grenadier Division on this one, and I have the decaled kill stripes on that one. The gun is kind of drooping, unfortunately. I wish they had like the rubber, yeah, like this, you know, the poly caps to hold the gun in place. They're doing that more now, so you don't have to get this kind of thing going on. So this kit has got its pros and cons. It's a vintage kit. Like we were building them, you know, in that case, the early or mid-'80s. I'm having fun at it now, redoing one many years later, just to have fun with this and experience it. And it's got pros and cons. It's an easy kit to build, so that's something that's a pro. I don't think it would be too difficult for young modelers necessarily. The gun is a little tricky, but not terrible. And what we're dealing with here, you know, just for the historical reference, is that we've got a German tank killer by adding a 75 millimeter PaK 40 anti-tank gun onto the, at this point, obsolete chassis of a Panzer II tank. I thought I had one over here. I don't. But it's a Panzer II tank that has been modified to carry the 75 millimeter anti-tank gun, which suddenly created a pretty good mobile tank killer. Yeah, these tanks at this point were obsolete. They had no real good combat value other than for scouting. But this way, you know, you recycle and you put a heavy gun onto a vehicle that at this point was going to go to the scrap heap anyway, and you make a pretty good stopgap killer. And these were very successful. And the other successful repurposization, I don't know, recycling project that the Germans came up with is creating the Vesp, which is this one here. We talked about this before, where you take the Panzer II chassis and then you mount a 105 millimeter howitzer on there, and you create a nice self-propelled gun. And this was extremely successful. This is by Allen Hobbies, and these are the Tamiya ones here. So let's have a peek at the instruction sheet here. So I'm trying to figure, when did this go into production? So the 150 were manufactured between December 1941 to June 1942. That's what I'm getting here. Wait a minute. Sorry, I don't think that's right. I think I'm reading the wrong thing. Marder II. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the earlier one. That's an earlier one with the Russian captured Russian guns. I'm sorry. So this is a very long story. So these showed up. All right, so the production of the Marder II, the other one I'm looking at, is an earlier version, which is usually, the Panzer II Type D and E, which had a different suspension. That version had a, that was a different one with the 76.2 millimeter Russian captured gun on that version of the Marder II. This version of the Marder II was started in June of 1942 and stopped in February 1943. Yeah, and because Hitler apparently thought that the Vesp was a more successful variant for the Panzer II chassis than this. But this, worked about 2 years. Yeah, and did quite well. So your instructions are kind of, they'll go map-like. Pretty typical for the Tamiya with its parts breakdown. Some nice photos. You start with the cannon there. I don't know if you can see this because it's hard for me to hold all of this. Yeah, it starts primarily with building the cannon, and then it goes on to working on the Panzer II, the running gear, and then some of the interior shields. And I'll fold this differently so I can show you better. And then we start building the hull. And then the finishing touches there. So it's not a terrible thing to build, although what's interesting this time around, looking at it, I've noticed, because I've been doing, research and looking at photographs and so forth of these vehicles, I've noticed that there's a number of things that are not represented in this kit that can be a bit of a problem. So you'll notice here that there is a radio rack that you put in. But look at that carefully. There's no radio. It's just the rack. They're not lying. It says radio rack, but no radio. So that's missing. So there's some interior bits that are not here. The radio being one of them. Let's move on here as far as the instruction sheet. So here's the painting guide here. A lot of different ways you can paint these things, and if you look at some either online or get some books on this, you'll notice there's lots of different ways to do this. There's the top one there, the famous one up above with that very simple spotted camouflage, which I believe is what you'll see on the actual photograph too. There's a nice squiggle pattern one there as well. Bottom one talks about where you would put kill marks and divisional marks and tactical marks, what they are. Nice breakdown over here as usual with Tamiya explaining what they are. Yeah, because this one has the little Valentine heart design, as you can see there, and that's the 320th Infantry Division, which I believe is an Eastern Front vehicle. We have the 216th Infantry Division, which has like these two horse heads in an X formation. The 16th Mechanized Infantry Division, which later becomes the 116th Panzer Division. This one here I used is the 10th Panzer Grenadier Division, which has a fun key design on it. There's another one for the 168th Infantry Division. And what you have also, you got that mascot with the fun face, which I showed you there. There's a unit mark. And then for tactical marks, just has this the insignia for a self-propelled anti-tank gun. I'll give you a close-up of all of that. There, okay? So it does have some interesting units, which you probably won't see those markings, I won't say in any other kit, but these are kind of units you don't normally see on a decal sheet. So that's kind of fun. And you can source some books or Google these units, you get a better idea where they were and what they did, depending on how detailed you really want to be about your history of these things. And of course, it's got the painting guide of, the dark yellow, and the red, brown, and green, and what time all those showed up. So let's have a look inside here. I'm going to move sitting guy out of the way. So my father's got the crew member in the spot, so you can't really see that it's lacking a radio. I don't know if we knew that back then when we were building models in back in the 80s, that there were issues like that on this kit. I don't think we had any clue. But something else that's intriguing at the time. Well, I guess this was used with an infantry unit, but the collar patches in this guy are for infantry. Whether they would be or not, I'm not really sure, but that's how they were painted, according to Tamiya guide at the time, how to paint soldiers. So what I'm doing on this one, I'll get up and show you. Since I knew it was lacking the gear, I decided to get if you can see that, an aftermarket piece, which is basically a jacket. I just hung a jacket in front of it as a way of hiding all the lacking equipment in there. I just put the guy's coat and put like a gas mask canister in there. So that was my attempt to try to remedy the situation. And I'm also looking to see if I can get a better MG34 anti-aircraft machine gun mounted in there, because the old one here, the original from the kit, is kind of lacking. So I'm going to look into that and see how that works out. Again, rather simple geometric pattern, just some fun masking, with masking tape to create that. And that's pretty much what I'm going with there. So that is my VE day. Look at the vintage Tamiya Marder II. So, ta-da! And we'll see you next time on the next model building workshop. Bye now. Have a good one.